Hello and welcome to the Cyberden, your weekly dose of tech and games. I, Jake the Voice, will be chatting with none other than professional voice actor Matthew Waterson, best known as the voice of the Doomslayer from Doom Eternal. Thanks for coming, mate.
Thank you so much for having me, Jake. It's a pleasure.
Now, Matthew, let's start off with the bread and butter question. So please tell everyone listening, what inspired you to enter the world of voiceovers?
Well, the simple answer is money. It's actually not a good answer, no. It was, like I think a lot of people, it started out as part of what I was doing in addition to theatre, and then I was in New York and doing both, and then eventually the voiceover just started to take up more and more time, and I was working more in voiceover, and also I was getting to do a lot more stuff in voiceover. In theatre I can do what I look like and what I sound like when I walk on stage, whereas in voiceover I could kind of do anything that I could make my voice do. So I was getting to do a lot of different things, and getting to do everything from games and animation, all that sort of stuff. So it just kind of naturally moved from being a part of the things I did to being the primary thing I did, because it gave me a lot more opportunity, which was fantastic. And it was something that I'd always been interested in, and something which people had sort of mentioned as a potentially a good option. And to be perfectly honest, I'd never really known what to do or how to get into it. So I was pursuing the regular acting track. And then one of the agency that I was at had a voiceover division, and they said, well, we'd like to send you out for some stuff for there as well. And I thought, oh, great, that'll work great. And they did they did well by me, but I actually turned out to have an old friend who was at another agency that specialized in voiceover, and so they then took me on. And that agency that specialized in voiceover really got me working very quickly. And so as soon as they got me working, it just built from there. And so I did it in New York for a few years, and then when I got to a point where the people I was working with sort of said there's just a lot more work out on the West Coast, I said, all right, and moved out and made voiceover pretty much the sole part of my work.
How long did you train in this field of work, and voiceovers, on-stage work, etc.? What were the early days of your career like when you were fresh face on the scene?
I did not go to uni for acting in any way, shape, or form. I came over here to the States to go to university from having gone to school in England, and studied political science and mathematics. So I guess political science, you can argue that is partially lying for a living, which is not dissimilar from acting in a certain way. But I got my degree in that stuff, and then afterwards I kind of terrified my family and said, right, so I'm going to give this acting thing a go. And so I at first spent the first few years in LA just studying with teachers, and then realized if I was going to actually do this, I ought to train properly. So then I went back to the UK and went to Lambda. And when I finished at Lambda, I went straight to New York for a combination of reasons. One, my feeling was New York, not unlike London, but New York is very expensive, and it's probably smarter, if you're going to give New York a crack, to do it when you have zero responsibilities and can afford to live incredibly poorly. And the other one was the person I was dating at the time was going to New York, and so it seemed like a good idea. So I went to New York from Lambda and was there for about 8 years, and started off, as I said, primarily in theatre. One of the first things I did was get sent back to the UK to do a show at Edinburgh, and then over the course of that 8 years, sort of transitioned from theatre into voiceover, as I said. So I did train sort of with a couple of private teachers in Los Angeles right after university, and then I went to Lambda, which was the bulk of my training and where I actually learned how to walk and talk at the same time.
Okay, now let's talk about your voice acting roles. How did you get the role of the Doomslayer for Doom Eternal? What was the auditioning process like for that one?
That one was funny because especially for video games, and I'm sure people have talked about this before, there is an absurd amount of secrecy about the games in terms of their development and their production and even their release and the press and how everything is done for them. So a lot of the time you have no idea what you're auditioning for when you audition. You get sent an audition. Sometimes you even have to sign an NDA before they will show you the audition. And most of the time it has had the names changed, it has had any proper nouns changed or details changed, so that it's kind of difficult to know what it is. And sometimes they just send sort of generic lines because they figure, well, we can hear people from this and then we'll cast them. So when I actually don't remember the specific audition for it because it was under NDA, and so it was just an audition. So I had done it, and then I got the call that I had this job and I'd booked it, and so I went great, and I went into to the studio to do it, and it was a director and casting director who I knew and had worked with before, and she sort of introduced me to the people, and we were sort of chatting, and it didn't really land with me what it was I was doing, because to be honest, I hadn't seen or played or been around Doom since I was at school in like 95, and one of the kids who had a lot of money had a laptop that had like the original Doom on it, still in black and white. And so we would sort of watch him play because it was very rare that he would let other people play it because expensive laptop. And so like I played it a few times there, and I didn't really know a lot about it between, those initial few games in the 90s and where we were a few years ago. And so when they were talking about the characters and things, I didn't put together what the franchise was. And then went in and recorded the lines for the Doomslayer and a couple of other bits and pieces here and there. And then sort of at the end, the guys from the production team sort of said, no, well, we want to get a photo because, this is the first time this character has been voiced like this. And I sort of said, oh, and then in chatting with them at the end, kind of suddenly went, oh, and everything sort of all the pieces of the puzzle fit together. And I went, oh, bloody hell, I know what this is. Oh, wait, this hasn't, okay, that's really cool. I did not know that as we were, getting into it and going through it. So it was this weird experience of auditioning for the job, getting the job, starting to work on the job without actually knowing what it was, which or sort of understanding the gravity of what it was, which I think kind of helped because there was no part of me that went, oh, I have to try and fulfill this or fulfill that idea based on, something which had been around for so many years. I could just go, oh, well, this is the thing that made sense to me when I was told about it and when I read it. And this was the thing that I did that got me the job. So I'm just going to do that and focus on doing that as well as possible, as opposed to going, oh, wait, it's this character. Well, in that case, I think this character should have all these other things that weren't there on the page or weren't there that production had asked for. I was just starting to put stuff in from background knowledge that I'd had. So it was a weird experience of kind of not knowing until almost after the fact of what it was I was doing, and then going, oh, this is really cool. All right, we'll very excited to see when this sort of comes out and how this is received. So it was a weird experience. It's not an unusual experience, especially in video games. There have been games before where I have not even known I was in a game until the game had come out, and then the credits go up because it was working under a different title and the characters were called different things, and you do it and then it doesn't actually get released for a year or two. And so by the time it comes out, a game comes out and you go, oh, that looks like a cool game, and then you realize, oh, I did something in that because they didn't tell me what it was. And this one I knew at the time what it was, or I knew at the time of the session what it was, but I didn't know anything going in beforehand. So it was an interesting experience, and it was an interesting way to approach something that is as well-known and sort of well-established as this particular franchise and this IP is.
So how would you describe knowing that you've basically fully voiced one of the most popular silent protagonists in video game history for the first time ever?
Well, and there's the rub right there, is that he's been basically, he's been silent, or you've heard breathing or grunting or yelling or like a couple of bits here and there. And so there's that immediate thing of, oh, this is really cool. And then, oh, people may not like this. People may like the fact that he's been silent for 20 years. They may like the fact that, it is the way it is. So you have both bits of going like, oh, this is going to be really cool and being really excited, and also going, oh, people may absolutely hate me for this, but, it is what it is. But it was a really cool realization to sort of go, oh, this character that I know, that I've seen, that I've played, that I have, that is one of the sort of core and original sort of, shooter character, first-person shooter characters or third-person shooter characters, I can never get that straight in my head, is, that has been around for so long. I'm actually getting to do it and getting to be, the sort of the primary voice of it, or the first voice of it. It's a really cool experience, and it's kind of bizarre, especially as it's a character that, as I said, I was exposed to for the first time when I was, 14, 15. And so the realization of, this guy hasn't really said much or had a voice for that amount of time, and I'm now getting to do it. It's kind of it's a whole different oh crap realization than getting to take a character that you might have known for a long time and getting to take that over when, 4 other people have done it or things like that. And that's always cool because you get to do your own thing and get to go, oh, well, this is an idea I had about this when I heard this person do it, or saw this person do it that I think would be different and cool. With this one, it's just a case of like, wow, this guy has not really said anything for decades. And now I get to be the one who is the first person to really voice him and really have him, say stuff. He still is not the most loquacious character who has ever existed in the narrative world, but I think that actually makes a lot of sense because for him to go from silent to, Tony Stark chattiness would be a little bizarre.
I think you're right there. I think it would be quite striking. Compare it to, let's say, I'm a bit of a Doom fanboy myself, actually. I've checked out like the Doom novels from the 90s. I've checked out.
Oh wow, yeah.
I've checked out the Doom comic, and it's like strikingly different how they portray the Doom Marine. Sometimes they give him a different name, sometimes they don't. But otherwise, it's very different how they kind of represent him, and it would be, as you say, very very bizarre to have the Doomslayer suddenly going, so I grabbed this BFG, the love of my life. I embraced it like it was my only child, and I decided to rip and tear. Yours truly is going to be walking down here. It was like Philadelphia, but on fires. I'm like, what?
Yes, yeah. That might pull people up a little short.
Just a bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what are your thoughts about all of the artwork, the memes of Doom Eternal? It's just so much cool stuff that has come out of the game's release. What are your thoughts about all this?
That stuff is fantastic. Any time that you're involved in something that just latches onto the public consciousness, that people respond to not just the thing as a whole, but to individual parts of it so strongly. It's really cool. It's an awesome experience. And they did such a terrific job with that, with the visuals of it and the sounds of it and the music of it and all of that kind of stuff, that it gives so much material for people to find what really turns them on in that. It's really amazing. And to see people sort of go, oh, okay, I'm going to take this piece of art, which is what anything like this is, any game, any movie, any television show, anything like that, any comic, any novel, it's all, different ways of delivering creativity to people. To see someone say, okay, I'm going to take this bit of it and I'm going to go off now and I'm going to use this bit of the art as inspiration for something I do. I'm going to use this bit of the music as inspiration for something I do. I'm going to take this part of the character, this image from it, this, relief of it to use, and then I'm going to turn it into my own thing, is really cool. And it's really fun to see people find new things, or even take it and go, oh, this still image of it that means this in the context of the game and of the story itself. I can take this and go 180 degrees with it and put something, turn it into a meme or turn it into something where I use it for a different bit of commentary. Is really interesting to sort of see what people do with it and where they go with it. And it's always a bit of a kick to go, oh yeah, I never thought of that. Or you see something and you go, yeah, that does kind of look like X, or that does kind of sound like Y, and that never occurred to me, but that's really cool. So anytime that people respond so strongly and people are so eager to take some of something that you've worked on and fold that into their own creativity, it's really cool to watch, and it's really fun to sort of see how people do it. And I'm fully aware that the people who made this game and the people who sort of worked on this game for years and years and designed it and everything, like the amount of work and time that they put into it and the amount of creativity and focus and attention to detail that they put into it, whether it's from the gameplay or the storytelling or the visuals or the sound design or the music that went with it, all of that kind of stuff is just, it's mind-boggling, the amount of work that goes into one of these sorts of things. We're very lucky, and as voiceover actors, we get to come in and, take a lot of the work that has been done and get to see some of the visuals and get to see, hear some of the sounds and things and talk to the people who've been sort of living immersed in this for years and take the material and the information that they have and go, oh, cool, okay, I've got some ideas and things I can do here and there, and do it and, hand it back to them and then get to see what they do with what you've done. The amount of material and, of themselves that they put into that stuff is just mind-boggling. The amount of work that goes into these games at this point with their complexity and everything is just mind-boggling.
Okay, slight small question. I'm just going to throw this out there.
Go for it.
Have you seen some of the artwork of the Doomslayer kind of like facing off, staring into the background? Except there's one chappie on the internet who's edited out some of the armor just around his backside and just shown off his well-toned bum cheeks. Have you seen that? Those kind of memes going around?
I haven't, but it does not surprise me in the slightest. I think just about anything like that, inevitably those sort of show up. So I think you just kind of take for granted almost anything you do. It's somewhere someone is going to be like, I can make that amusingly uncomfortably sexual. So, it was like, what would absolutely make this image crack? A bum. Like, I think it's just about a human nature at this point. And so I haven't seen it, but it doesn't surprise me. And I have no doubt that at some point, searched for or not, it will show up in my feed of something or other.
I'll send it to you right now. Live reaction, folks.
All right, hang on. Let me pull that up. Oh, there he is. Well, I will say this. The person who did this, I don't know how, but they did at least successfully manage to match my own personal bum. Like, I'm in the equal shape of this gentleman that has been represented. So, I can't really complain about that.
You can say he did a cracking job.
He did. He did indeed. Yeah, no, that is the arseless chaps version of the Doom Marine.
Would you jump at the opportunity to lend your voice to this character again? I mean, perhaps as a video game, or perhaps a spin-off, or maybe there could be some animations in the future. You never know. But would you jump at the opportunity to voice the Doomslayer again if you could?
Yeah, I mean, it's by virtue of the fact that this is. He has spoken so infrequently, and even in this game, he does not. He does not speak a huge amount. If it's not like it's a case of having done it and going, well, I feel like I've fully exhausted the entire emotional range of this character. And he's the Doom Marine. Like the majority of him at this point is, rage-based annihilation. But yeah, like absolutely. If it may well be a character that. His speaking never really extends much beyond what we've seen so far, just because at this point, after what he has been through, this is the extent of his communicative abilities. But yeah, I mean, this is a blast, and doing this kind of stuff is always fun, and especially the any time you get to do something which is kind of over the top, and when somebody when you have a character that gets deposited in front of people, having just seen the kind of hell that he has seen, and is just trying to find words to put to it. Like getting to do that kind of response and that kind of stuff is just a blast. So yeah, I mean, I can't imagine a situation where I would go, yeah, no, that sounds really interesting, but I've done it once, so I'll pass on it.
Now, you also voiced the smug Scottish specialist Torque from Call of Duty Black Ops 4. It was pretty fun to actually hear this guy talk. I went on YouTube and listened to the voice lines, and personally, I got a bit of a soft spot for, the smug Scot stereotype in first-person shooter games.
Yeah, he was. That one was funny because when I sort of went in to do that one, they said, "Oh, all right, we got a visualization of it," and in my head I was like, I don't know, is he kind of like the little wiry guy that because he's sort of a demolitions expert? I was like, yeah, this doesn't necessarily need to be sort of a big guy. This could just be a little wiry guy who can blow everything up. And then they showed me the image, and I looked at him and went, "Oh, great big ginger guy with a ginger beard." Well, that's kind of what I look like, so I'm pretty sure I got an idea on that one. And yeah, it was just a blast. Like that one, especially when they said, okay, so we're doing, we're going to have some of these vignette scenes where it kind of explains where he came from, and his one in particular, it was just a blast. It was when they said, so this is his backstory. That one I loved just because having gone to boarding school in England and stuff, I looked at it and just went, yeah, the idea of going, oh, that guy's kind of a dick. I'm just gonna drop some X-Lax into his tea and watch what happens. Just felt very familiar to me.
So let's talk a bit about Dota Dragon's Blood. You voiced Captain Thruling, Gwyneth, and Deeb. I apologize if I butchered the pronunciations, any Dota fans out there. But anyway, so what do you enjoy about lending your voice for this show based on, of course, Valve's iconic Dota series?
This one was really interesting because coming into it, I honestly didn't know a lot about it. Like, I didn't have a lot of information on the background of Dota or any of that kind of, any of the games or any of the spin-offs or any of the sequels or anything. So this was one where I got it and I got to walk in and really approach it just from what the producer actually had written and what the director and everybody was kind of looking for and what was creating. And so this one was cool because as they started to explain the world to me, it just, I didn't have the visuals or things for that because they were still working on it. So when they were sort of explaining it to me at the beginning, it was just their descriptions of the world and what was happening and all that kind of stuff. So it's a story that just sounds cool when somebody explains it to you. Of this knight who lives to hunt and kill dragons and then ends up having this experience where he sort of becomes one with one kind of thing, and then is sort of fighting with that, and you're like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then especially with with the captain going, yeah, you're the one who actually has so much of a chip on his shoulder that you're kind of the reason a lot of this stuff happens at the very beginning. It's always fun to be a character who drops in, absolutely just ruins everybody's plans, and then just is gone. And so that's always fun. There's a roles where you go, oh, I just get to come in and have a huge impact on the entire story, and then I get to get out of Dodge without having to deal with any of the ramifications of my stupidity. Yeah, that sounds like fun. So getting to get into the world was interesting because I didn't have the background in it. I got to learn about it and figure out stuff for the first time, which is always kind of a fun way to get into something because usually everybody in something like this has come in through the games and through the existing IP. So getting to do it with getting to do it by just approaching first the show means I got to experience the narrative that they had created and the characters that as they were sketching them out. And then go back the other way. So it's kind of doing it in reverse and then going, okay, well, what is this based on again? Oh, okay, it's this stuff, it's this material, it's these stories. Oh, okay, so these are the stories that, that are now being told in the show and how that relates to the IP and to the games and et cetera, et cetera. And then, they just did a really, really good job with that, both in storytelling and then the people in it are the other voice actors in it are insanely talented. And then, the visuals of it are just gorgeous. So it was, that kind of thing where they take the sort of the anime feel and the anime look and do what they did with it. It's just, I watched, I don't get to watch or play anywhere near what I used to because I have young children, but I managed to get through the first season of Dota a couple of nights ago. I finally got through to the last episode, sort of watching an episode here and there at like 11:30 at night. And so it was really, really cool to get to actually see the whole thing come to fruition because that was one where I'd only got to see a couple of scripts of the episodes that I was in. I hadn't seen the whole arc. So getting to see the whole arc and getting to see everything that happened is really, really fascinating.
let's talk about Below Tales of Arcadia as Fufu the Minuscules. Now, for those who haven't seen this show, I mean, it's created by Guillermo del Toro. I apologize.
Guillermo del Toro, yeah.
Yeah, I apologize for my bad pronunciation. I don't do any practice for this stuff. But anyway, so, okay, so for those who don't know, what's the show's all about? And please describe your character and of course, your experience working on this one as well.
The Tales of Arcadia series is just amazing. It's three separate series that exist in the same universe, and it exists in this little town in California called Arcadia. And the first series is Trollhunters, and then the second one is Three Below, and then the last one is Wizards. And the characters all intermingle, but the first one is Trollhunters is about this population of trolls that live underground under this town. The second one, Three Below, is about an alien prince and princess who have escaped their home planet, an attack on their family on their home planet, and are on Earth trying to figure out how to get back to where they were from and reclaim their world. And then Wizards, the third one, is sort of a time jump one where some of the characters go with the apprentice of Merlin and go back in time to the time of Merlin, which in this universe is also where a lot of the initial fights with the trolls happened, and where there was sort of a split and the trolls went underground and the humans stayed above ground. And so Three Below is the middle series, which is the Aliens series, and Fufu the Minuscule, the Fufus, the bunny Fufus, are a race of intergalactic bounty hunters. And so there's a bounty on these children who are hiding out on Earth with their sort of bodyguard, who is voiced by Nick Offerman, who is one of the funniest human beings on the planet. And the costs for all of these things are just staggering. I mean, when you have the kind of people behind it that you have, they're able to get kind of everybody. So the all three shows are just amazing. And I actually started in the first one in a character as a character named Draal, which is sort of an immediate sort of small scale antagonist to the main character, the Troll Hunter, which was voiced by Anton Yelchin. And I was actually only supposed to be in a couple of episodes. It was the story starts with this kid, this kid Jim Lake, who gets chosen by this amulet to be this protector of the trolls called the Troll Hunter, which is a little confusing name, but they do explain why. And my character Draal gets furious about it because he is the son of the previous troll hunter and thinks that A, no human should be a troll hunter, and B, if anybody should take over the mantle after his father is killed, he should. So he does not take kindly to the boy, and challenges him and tries to fight him and loses, and then ends up becoming one of his friends and his protector and living in his basement as his kind of bodyguard. But I was only supposed to be in a couple of episodes. I was only supposed to be in, I think, maybe 2 episodes of that one, and then they just liked the character, and so they kept coming to the places where the character was supposed to die, and they would get to that place and they would go, well, we like the character, we don't want to kill him yet. And then he'd been in enough that they said, well, now that the death can't just be like in an episode, it's got to mean something, which meant that the character just kept living. So a job that was supposed to be 2 episodes, in one season, ended up going pretty much the run of the whole show, which was amazing. And then when they came to the next series, they found some stuff for me in that, and that's where the Fufu the Minuscule, and I think 2 or 3 of the Fufus in there, because they're like this collection of little bunny intergalactic bounty hunters, and so they all kind of look similar to a certain extent. There's some giant one. There was like a giant one that had to have a tiny voice and a tiny one that had to have a huge voice. I think I made one of them sound vaguely like one of the Beatles just because we were like, well, that would be fun. But those characters were among the people who were searching, trying to hunt down the aliens in the second series. And there's actually a movie that ties the whole thing together that is coming out. I don't know when exactly. It's coming out. They're all on Netflix, and I don't know when the movie is coming out, but I think it's relatively soon. So that was that whole thing. It was 3 separate series that were all part of one universe. And one of the funny things is that Guillermo directed the first couple of episodes of Trollhunters, and then he directed a couple of episodes throughout here and there, but none that I ever was on. So I've actually still never met him. I've never met the man, but I've got to play in a universe that he created with a couple of other incredibly creative and amazing people, which was kind of mind blowing.
So, are there any other standout roles or moments in your career? You voiced characters like Nightmare from Hulk, Where Monsters Dwell, Conan the Barbarian from Conan Exiles, as well as additional roles in The Last of Us 2, Red Dead Redemption 2, and much more. So, like, say, anything that stands out to you as well?
It's funny, the game that I've enjoyed playing most of the things I worked on was the Uncharted 4, I think, just because that game was just a blast. I love playing that one so much. But the Hulk, the voicing Nightmare in Hulk Where Monsters Dwell was so much fun, because that was one of the jobs where we actually recorded it as a group. So we had, a big room, and in the room was Fred Tatasciore as Hulk, and Liam O'Brien was Doctor Strange, and, Jesse Birch and Edward Bosco and Kiarastami and all these, Mike Vaughan, all these people. And you don't always get to record as a group. Like, none of the Del Toro show was recorded as a group, because was almost, that was a lot of movie stars, and they were never going to get all those people in the same place at the same time regularly to record, week after week after week. So those jobs you just recorded in, on your own with the showrunners and the showmakers, directors, giving you the information you needed and telling you, what they needed from you based on how they knew they were putting the episode together. For Where Monsters Dwell, we were all in a room together for sessions over a couple of days. So we actually got to bounce stuff off of each other and play. And there's certain things like, anybody who's seen him do this will tell you, but watching Fred do stuff like Hulk is just mind-blowing, because it's a voice that, if anybody else can, for the most part, if almost anybody else can do it, they can do it for a couple of minutes and then they have to take a break because it's just so stressful. Fred can just do it for a 4-hour session like it's nothing. And that's just mind-blowing. You sort of watch that, even if you're a voice actor and you do this a lot, you kind of watch that and you just go, that's not human. No one's supposed to be able to do that, but Fred can do that. And so things like that are just amazing to actually get to stand and watch. And Fred is in the Tales of Arcadia series as well, and he has another huge voiced character in there. And again, like, being able to actually stand in the room and watch him do that is intimidating and somewhat depressing, because you go, well, I can't do that. But also, it's a wonderful experience, and you learn a ton from it. And then, just the other people who are on it, people like Liam, who's just an amazing voice actor, getting to watch people work and being able to bounce off them. You get to do all sorts of things that you wouldn't necessarily think of or come up with or get to play with if you're sitting in a room on your own and, having to generate what's happening or basing it on being told either what somebody's done in another session or what they're going to do in a later session. So that one was really, really fun, just because it's a fun story. It's a really fun character. It's again, this sort of over the top, crazy character. Getting to be the bad guy is always fun. And then getting to do it in a room with all the other people so that you can actually do whole scenes bouncing off of them is something that you don't always get to do. And so getting to do that is just a joy when it happens.
Do you have any dream roles, any projects you would love to voice in?
It's funny. It's less, I don't have like characters necessarily that I'm like, oh, that's one that, I need to do that person. But there's definitely things that there are definitely projects that I would love to be in. Like, I was watching, as soon as the show Archer came on, 8 years ago, whatever, the first couple of episodes, I just watched that and I went, I want to do this show. I don't care what on it. I want to do this show. This whole thing is amazing. So like that's a property that I just loved, and I loved the way it looked and the sensibility and the storytelling and everything about it. That was one where I just sort of was watching it going, everything about this is amazing and is right up my alley in terms of my humor and my sensibilities, so I would do anything in this. there's and there are, it's weird. There's things like of like big animated movies. There's weird ones that just stuck with me. Like I love Lilo and Stitch. Like Lilo and Stitch is amazing. If they were ever doing a Lilo and Stitch, and they've done sequels and direct-to-video things like that, but like that universe is just a blast to me. I just love it. So if anything ever came up, the ability to do something in like a Lilo and Stitch movie, I would jump at that. Which are weird answers for somebody who usually is playing Doomslayer or monsters or orcs or things like that. So I don't know whether that'll necessarily happen, given that a lot of the time I'm large, aggressive people and creatures. But those are the things that I watch, and I just go, I love this. This show, and I would love to do something on it. And then in terms of games and things, I've done little things in some of in like the Uncharted series and in Last of Us, but the stuff that studio puts out is the material that studio puts out is just amazing in terms of from a narrative storytelling standpoint and the way they do characters and things like that. So anything that they're doing, I've been lucky enough to do stuff in some of their things, but anything that they're doing would be something that I would jump at, just because their ability to craft and tell just these amazing stories that are, like playing the original Last of Us, playing through that first game was actually scary. Like there were scenes and things in that, and times when I was playing that game when I had the same sort of feeling rolling up my spine and in my stomach that I have watching a really, really good horror movie. That's awesome, and that's not always something that happens in a game when people are trying to combine gameplay and storytelling. They just do it so well.
Now, outside of voice acting, how do you like to unwind?
It's funny, if you had asked me that question 5 years ago, it would have been a very different answer than now. We have small children, which means that unwinding is any time when the children are asleep at the moment, which is very rarely. Which is also why I've been able to spend very little time actually playing games or things like that in the last few years. But most of the time, if it's if there's something outside of work, it's these days, most of the time it involves getting outside. We actually moved a little outside the city this past year because we wanted to be more outside. So now we're in a place where we're 10 minutes from the beach in one direction and 10 minutes from the mountains in the other direction. And so we can near a lake, so we can go to the ocean and we can go to a lake and we can go up into the mountains and we can do all that sort of stuff easily and close to home, which means we can do it on the short trips that get the kids out and doing that sort of stuff. So anything that gets us out and away from any kind of built-up area at the moment is fantastic. It's great for my wife and I. It relaxes us. It chills the kids out because all of a sudden it's a different environment and there's new things to look at because they're still very small. They're 1 and 3, so there's a lot of just new stuff in the world. The 1-year-old has basically existed entirely during a pandemic, so for her, other people are amazing. We took them to the zoo the other week, and the 1-year-old was just like, yeah, giraffes. What is that? That's another baby. I didn't know there were more like me out there. So at the moment, it's anything that kind of gets us out and actively doing stuff, because I think we've all spent a lot of time cooped up at home or indoors in some way, shape, or form the last 16 months or so. So that at the moment is most of the pastime. 5 years ago, it might have been more like more actually active, running out, doing things, stuff like that. But it's been a little more limited once I actually had other human beings who didn't naturally come with a sensibility to keep themselves alive, who I had to help make sure stay alive and stay happy and stay healthy. It's actually amazing, the natural inclination of children to go like, that can probably do me serious damage, so that's exactly what I'm going to do unless somebody stops me.
Matthew, let me just say it's been an absolute blast. Thank you so much for coming on board to this interview.
Thank you so much, Jake. This was a blast, and I appreciate the chance to chat with you, and I appreciate the chance to talk about some of this stuff because the majority of the time I spend working in a small padded room alone. So getting to actually talk about it and spend time thinking about it is always a blast.
Is there anything that you'd like to say to your many, many fans out there?
Just two things. One is thank you. Two is I apologize that I'm sort of crap at social media, so I put stuff up, but not probably as regularly or as consistently or as of good quality that people probably deserve. So I'm trying. It's just not something that comes as easily to me. So thank you, and I'm sorry.
And I'd also like to thank my lovely listeners out there for once again checking out another great interview right here on The Cyberden, your weekly dose of tech and games. So thanks for coming, Matt, and watch out for those demons.
I'll try. I don't always pay attention behind me, let's be honest. One's probably going to get me. I hope it's quick.
They call me the Doomslayer when I'm not ripping and tearing. Then you can find me listening to Jake the Voice on the Cyberden. He's got huge guts.